All right, the S&P 500 this week was pretty interesting. We didn't get the great upside. We didn't get the big breakout. We didn't get anything crazy. However, I do believe you're getting something worth a monster setup heading into next week. I'm going to explain exactly how I see this happening and why there's so many similarities to previous moves that we've seen on a name like Nvidia in the sector of semiconductors, because that was the thing that carried us over the past few days. Although when you look at the S&P and the Nasdaq, you didn't get this crazy move. So we'll talk about what's happening there. The next thing is going into the fundamentals, because this week was a little bit unlike most weeks, right? You didn't get a lot of crazy news. And that's because Trump wasn't here. Trump was in the Middle East negotiating deals there. We saw the new UAE deal that we just got with him, the defense contract, etc. Trump got a plane, whatever's happening there. But again, it was already leaked. It was already announced that when he comes back to America, you're supposedly we're going to get a new trade deal announced, right? Now, in my opinion, I think one of the biggest deals out there will be India. I think that's going to be the biggest one that we can kind of solidify in the short term. Beyond that, again, we would love to see China and Japan. Those will be big ones. Japan's hitting a little bit of a break, in my opinion. But I think India is the one that's like next up. That's the one that will be a big win. Next, going through that will be something along the lines of China, okay? That's another really interesting part to me as well, because I think we got something blown out of proportion with what's happening with China. I don't think that we had a crazy trade deal announced. It was more like we're pausing, but we're talking and things look good. That's where we're at. And I think it's important to recognize what's happening. I think it's a big step. Important to know. Now, one of the fake news that came out yesterday was that India was offered by the U.S. a trade deal with no tariffs. India came out and disputed that, said that was not true. That was never said. However, they're making strides and they're really happy with what's happening. Japan, like I said, hit the brakes. They want to wait to get a better deal. Will they get one? We'll see. I will say, if you get all these other countries making deals, I think it'll put Japan in a bad situation, but we'll see what happens there. That's where we're at overall. We're going to go into the charts, but before I do that, I have to say one specific thing. If you guys are interested in what's happening with Discord, how we're trading every single day. Now, this week, I've been a little bit... First 3 days, I was pretty active. Last 2 days, I had to be a little bit more passive. Just what's happening. I have some stuff going on with my family. I was pretty busy. But again, this is why I have Jordan. He runs everything behind the scenes. You guys don't. He's not as face on the channel, if you will. But again, he's one of the best traders, and he lines up with everything that I trade, how I trade, everything along those lines. Traders have been killing it. So, and again, like I said, like when the market gets bullish, you're going to make money. You don't need to time the bottom. And that's what's been happening. We have traders killing it on futures, going nuts. Again, everything there, it's all based off of levels, all based off of all the charts and stuff that we're looking at. Every morning we give you a rundown of the futures, which you're looking at there, the key levels to the tick. Last night I gave you the level into 21.532. That was today. This was yesterday, announced right here at market open. Guess what happened? We hit that level to the tick. Again, breakdowns all day throughout the day. We're also live on WAP inside of Discord as well. So make sure you tap in if you're interested. The link is down below, and the free course, all that's for free for you as well. Even if you want to join the free Discord, that is there also. But let's get back to the video. Before we go any further, I'm going to give a special shout out to the sponsor of this video, and this is who I'm using for all my options tradings and what I'm doing with stocks. This is Moomoo. Now, again, you've seen me go over in the videos going over how I'm going into options, how I go and break down specific charts of how the option's moving, and you can do all that with the platform. I like it a lot. But something else I really like with the platform is getting all of my news and getting all of the data that I need in real time from Moomoo. So if I go over to news over here, I can actually go over to calendar economic data. I can get non-farm payrolls, unemployment data, all of that in real time gets fed directly to me. Then I can go more into data more specifically, right, on who's institutionally buying these. Some of these hedge funds, big buyers out there going in there. Then I can go a little bit further, like to announcements of what's happening from earnings. So this isn't just like a one meets all, right? This is kind of giving everything like you need, and it's in different spots, and you can highlight all these things as well. If you only want to get data on what's happening with the Mag 7, you can customize that all to what you want to get. And again, your specific platform of what's happening on Moomoo. They made it really customizable for you, the trader. But again, right now, also, when you make a select deposit, you can get up to 30 free stocks. Yeah, 30 free stocks just for signing up and putting money on your account. You can, again, get more information with the link down below. But again, I recommend trying them out because, again, it's who I use for all my videos. And it's worth just giving it a shot for free to see if you even like the platform and the data that's coming out there. The link is down below. Let's get back to the video. So the main thing I want to talk about in today's video is going more into how we moved from midday Tuesday to the end of the week. Okay. Now, again, I will say Sunday market open, Monday you open up and nothing really happens. Tuesday you get another big shot up pre-market and then do nothing. a bulk of New York session, there was not a lot of crazy activity happening, is what I want to say. Now, I know some people are like, well, Tyler, you get a crazy move. Are you mad about it? I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about that. But it's important to understand what's actually happening here and how the action is actually playing out. Because most of the New York session, nothing was really going on, right? It's worth mentioning you are still moving up in a straight line here on the NASDAQ. This is still a phenomenal move. You went straight through your 200 SMA. This is fantastic. I'm not complaining about that. But it's important to realize when we take a step back and we look at what is really moving in the market. Let's go to something like Apple, right? Apple got its pretty good move up here Monday morning, did nothing, stagnated. This is one of the more exciting charts that I'm looking at. I'm going to go more in detail here in a second, but I'll come back to it. You go look, I don't want to go to NVIDIA yet, but go to something like Meta, right? Meta had a pretty decent week, right? But again, Monday, right? Friday into Monday, get your big move, and we kind of sit in this little bit of a range. You get a little pop up and come back down. You don't end the week at highs, right? Nasdaq's ending the week at highs. Meta is not. You go into Amazon, right? Gap up Monday, push up, get back below the 100 MA. Again, you're seeing a steady trend here. Names are consolidating. They're either pushing up, a little bit of a retrace from where they were Monday at open. Netflix is one of the outliers, which we did trade. It's awesome. Can't complain. But again, something to think about. Microsoft, another one of the outliers that did really well, right? So there are names that are outperforming, worth mentioning. CrowdStrike, another name here, right? Great Monday, right? Great action going into Monday. Kind of got some stagnation back down, pop back up. But ultimately here Monday into today, really just in a range. Same overall thinking. I'm just going to go in across a broad sector of what's happening there, right? The names that really did the heavy lifting were NVIDIA, AVGO, TSM, semiconductor names we talked about. And it's interesting to think about that because semis were at such a critical point. We talked a lot about this, right? You go to SMH, and again, semis were at this kind of point, where you popped up a little bit, but you really didn't get any crazy movement, right? And then NVIDIA gets the big surge above your 200, great action, right? So again, you can't complain, but it's important to understand what's really taking place. So when I take a step back and I go look at something like XLK, and I look at how you're finishing the week, it's pretty strong. XLK is the tech ETF, right? And you look here, and I don't know how you couldn't not be excited. You gap up, really good push Monday morning, right? Monday's the bulk of your move into Tuesday, stagnant, and really nothing else happens. You still look really solid. And look at where XLK is. You go back into your previous highs back here from May 2024, and you go, and I already have the level marked out, funny enough. And then you have, obviously, your previous highs up here as well, like into 240, 241. And I genuinely think you're one push away from popping off. And again, look at where you're mounting above. Like, again, levels are just clearly there for you, right? Already marked out everything along those lines, level here as well, 232. You're mounting all those levels. So again, I look at XLK, names like Apple and other names in the tech ETF, and I get excited because I do think Apple has a lot to gain, especially if we start to get things working out with the India trade deal. And I will say Apple is still underperforming. Now, I will also go into details of saying what I've been saying, is Apple is one of the weakest stocks, relatively speaking, regarding what's happening with tariffs. It's a big issue out there right now, right? You should be concerned about what's happening. However, I will also say, they've if these things start to pan out, you are illiquid back to the upside. We've been targeting 219.5 for a while, and then obviously your 200 SMA. The concern here, though, is if you start to break down, and this definitely can happen, you start to lose 209, I think you have a clear shot back down to the gap fill, right? The 200, that's a huge question mark, and it doesn't look great. So I'm not saying to blindly go long, but I'm saying the setups, in my opinion, are clearly there. And when you look at what's happening broad in the market, I'm like, man, this is setting up to, like I said, the snowball could start rolling fast. And we know if you go down fast, you can go up just as fast. If you go up fast, you can go down just as fast with that illiquidity. So important to think about that. Another big name this week was Tesla, which we talked a lot about. We said if we got above 300, you were going to shoot right into 326, 325. I mean, you did that and more into 350. So congratulations if you caught that name. But again, things to be considering, right? And so it's important to realize with what's been moving and what still has room to move, right? That's another really big metric. The next thing to think about is what's happening here with SPY. Now, SPY is moving great, but something that's worth mentioning is today's one of the first days that you saw the S&P 500 outperform the NASDAQ and kind of the Dow get a little bit of juice going, right? Now, the part here that's key of realizing is why? Why is that happening? It's been primarily because of healthcare, right? UNH getting slammed, one of the biggest names in healthcare, and it's a huge name in the SPY. It's a huge name in the Dow, right? So if you go look at Dow on this whole week, which again I get more and more excited about, because again the Dow has been consolidating for the entire week. It's done nothing, really has done nothing, right? Monday or Sunday you get a push up, but you kind of just go back down. Nothing happened. You're not even at your 200 SMA yet, right? And that is putting a little bit of drag on the S&P and what's happening there. So this starts to get resolved. You see buyers step back in, which I will say, like there is a big risk with UNH and what's happening with there. If they come out that, they committed fraud, whatever's happening, they'll basically be in 5 years of purgatory and the stock could get slammed for 5 years. Worth mentioning, right? As far as accepting Medicare and getting some of those payments, right? I'm not going to go into the details, but worth mentioning. You should look into it if you are looking to make a bet. I will say, though, UNH is kind of one of those companies that could be considered too big to fail. Okay? Just want to highlight that. But you zoom out and you look at what's happening here on ES. And again, ES came into our level, which we mentioned, 59.74. Again, if you don't believe me, you just go in and see the Discord post, which I post in here as well. So you guys can see, you go in here and go look at ES. What are we marked out before marking it open? 59.7475. Ask below. The guys can tell you as well, right? Right into our key level, as you can see, and that's where you're at. So you're moving how we want us to move. And now you're going to get a part of the market, which has just been held down. So I think you have some blow-up potential going into this week if some of this stuff starts to get resolved, especially with new trade deals. I think you're in a very good position moving forward. That's the premise of what I'm trying to say. And again, when you put yourself in situations, or you find situations at least, right, where you have big potential, I think those are where you really can make the most money and capitalize the most. That's all I'm saying. I'm not telling you to YOLO. I'm not telling you to hammer calls. I'm just telling you, looking out from the outside looking in, this could be a pretty monster spot. Now, the only area that I don't love, or not that I don't even love, is like NVIDIA here. You just moved up so fast. And again, if I just get rid of this, you can see real quick. You kind of broke that downtrend there. You're pushing up. You have room like in a 140, 141. But you moved up really quick, and this is very illiquid. So if sellers do get aggressive or some sort of bad news comes out, which I can't predict any crazy bad news from Trump or anything like that, I will just say you could drop quick. So all I'm saying, watch the monster levels, watch what we're looking at, keep your head on a swivel because there is breakout potential. And there's a large part of this market that didn't get a crazy run this week. Worth mentioning. You got to gap up, but you didn't get a crazy run. And there's even a larger part of the market that's being held down based off of news of what's been happening out there. And if that gets calmed, again, you're going to expect, kind of some fuel on the fire, what's happening there. And if that starts to play catch up. So again, worth mentioning, worth watching. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm watching here on the day going into Monday. I'll have more videos coming out. I'm probably more deeper breakdowns into tomorrow and on Sunday. More NVIDIA stuff, stocks I'm liking, mid caps along those lines. Kind of haven't had mid caps to really be talking a lot about unless you're buying for the long term. But I'll have more updates coming out there. Have a good one, traders. I'll see you tomorrow.